Welcome back. Time for another episode of SLMA Radio, the longest-running program here on the Funnel Radio Network. Brought to you by the Sales Lead Management Association. If it has to do with sales lead management, it probably starts here. Today our program is a repeat. It's a program that was on CRM Radio last week with Paul Petersen from GoldMine. He's acting as the host, and Jim Obermayer, who's usually the host of this show, is the guest. Paul and Jim talk about the shifting definition of sales lead management and how some CRM providers are renaming themselves as sales lead management platforms. Interesting stuff. Let's get started right now.
Paul, Happy New Year, and it's great to be back. We got a new set of series. We had some great talks last year, and later in this broadcast slot, we'll recap some of the highlights from 2019 and what they mean for us in 2020. And along those lines, today we have a special guest, somebody stepping out from behind the curtain and in front of the microphone, Jim Obermayer, who is director of the Sales Lead Management Association and Funnel Media, who produces this broadcast. Jim, welcome.
Thank you, Paul. It's nice to be on the other side of the microphone.
You know, you've been with Sales Lead Management Association now for how many years? You have over 6,000 members, and GoldMine has always been a sponsor. It's kind of a core marketing place for us to be. How long have you been with SLMA? And
we founded SLMA in 2008. We started the SLMA radio program in 2010. This is going to be our 10th year of SLMA radio. You've been with CRM Radio for the last 4 years, I believe.
Right. And I think actually, toot my own horn, but I think one of our shows together, how to talk to a naked lead, was a high ranking one. I'm not sure. They don't know if everybody stayed through the whole broadcast, but that certainly got their attention, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. You've been a guest on SLMA Radio probably a dozen times through the years, and then started your own program. As we launched the Funnel Media Group, we now host 15 programs, and yours is one of the flagship programs on CRM Radio.
When you started the SLMA, what do you see as the need that was out there that caused you to put this radio station together?
Well, both the association was started, then the radio station, to introduce SLMA to company presidents and people out there. We took a broad subject, sales lead management, simply because there was CRM and there were programs and there were fulfillment companies and all kinds of things going on. Salesforce was fairly new at the time when we started this. However, we started it because most marketing people didn't look at sales lead management as a topic. They didn't look at it from the prospect's birth to their eventual sales won, sales lost. And they weren't organizing it within the company. I had worked for several sales lead management companies, the real pioneers in the industry, as their VP of sales, Inquiry Handling Service, AdTrack Corporation, and eventually started SLMA to bring some education to the marketing and the sales management teams that sales lead management is a function that has to be attended to. Otherwise, you're going to fail. We did research for many years that basically showed that sales leads close at a predictable rate, approximately 44-45% close within 12 months. 22 to 26% close in 6 months, 10 or 15% close in 3 months. And this has been going on. I've gone back to research back to 40 years. It hasn't really changed very much. What has changed is the follow-up of the sales leads and the number of tools, the CRM tools, the marketing automation tools, the sales management software, those tools that have come aboard to help close the gap, so to speak, between the inquiry and the follow-up of the salespeople, and obviously the tracking of the marketing expenditures.
So let's talk about get a common terminology and maybe a little basics, but what is a lead?
Well, it's interesting because early on in this industry, we always talked about inquiries, and a lead didn't become a lead until it was qualified. Salesforce came along and called everything leads, regardless, and then they just talked about the qualification of those leads as they went. But I still think of inquiries as a great unwashed group that comes in, and then as it becomes qualified, it becomes a lead. A salesperson says, this is a lead that I can live with, because salespeople obviously always say, well, I get a lot of inquiries, but not a lot of leads. And they still seem to separate those. So that's what I consider to be a lead, is a qualified inquiry.
And speaking of qualified, one of the changes that I've seen over the years has been that marketing would generate the inquiries, trade shows, you'd come back with a list of attendees, or you'd come back with bingo cards or whatever they might be, and have to follow up. But one of the things that I've seen is that my own company does this, that marketing has now gotten involved in qualifying. So you have marketing qualified leads. Ostensibly is to identify those who are good fits both for the customer and for the company before they get past the sales, right? So I don't know that I'd say it's new, but I think it's now a big part of lead management, isn't having marketing actually talk to the inquiries that they generate.
Even from the early days, marketing was getting involved in talking to the prospect, because salespeople famously didn't follow up 90% of the inquiries they got. So the aggressive marketing managers got frustrated and started qualifying themselves. The initial qualification was just mailing packages and emailing things out and getting a response, and then using telemarketing. And then many marketing managers began to manage telemarketing department so they could qualify leads and take those qualified leads and push them on to the salespeople. Many companies don't actually push all inquiries out. They only push the marketing qualified leads out.
Exactly. So you're doing it with a group that's trained to qualify, presumably a little lower cost than, let's say, an outside direct rep who you want focused on opportunities. What other trends are evolving in lead follow-up today, or is there anything different about a lead today than there was back in 2008?
There really isn't much difference in the inquiry itself, the lead itself. It's what happens to the inquiry when it comes in. About 12 years ago, with Market First and a few of those earlier companies, about that time, 10 or 12, 14 years ago, we had marketing automation come on, and that was really focused on the consumer inquiries, and eventually went into B2B. From CRM, which was fairly new and now is 20 years old, and then we ended up with marketing automation, which is starting to take over the qualification of the inquiries that got into the system. Marketing automation, I don't know. I think people say about 40, 50% of the companies out there have a marketing automation system today. About 85% have a CRM system. And then some companies are trying to separate themselves and say, oh, we're a sales lead management company. We're not. We're not marketing automation. We're not CRM. And yet you look into what they offer, and they keep saying they do all CRM functions and marketing automation functions. So, it's just a marketing sleight of hand, I say.
Customer relationship management starts out with the word customer, and you could create a hybrid potential customer, right? But CRM just sort of subsumed all of what was Salesforce automation and lead processing. But at the core, right, it's still a lifeblood to say, how do I process leads that come in the door, the phone, the website? You have very little information about who they are other than some contact information.
And with CRM, things have come full circle, because now you've got ABM, account-based marketing program. So by the time the marketing person says, well, I've got to have a CRM system, and then I should have a marketing automation system, and if I want a sophisticated one, I should buy one something separate that attaches to the CRM system. Some will have certainly a sales lead management system, if they buy into that's different than CRM and marketing automation. And then you've got account-based marketing, which comes back to really the customer and the customer management. Everybody's, I think, going in circles trying to differentiate themselves.
Right. Yeah, the products. And within lead management itself, within the association, what are some of the topics that are being talked about as being things lead managers want to address?
Well, it kind of comes back to what is the definition of sales lead management. Sales lead management is the databasing of prospect interest by product and source, fulfillment of their requests. Could be delivery of multiple content exposures, follow-up by a qualified salesperson, tracking, recording the qualification of the prospect's ability to buy, tracking the inquiry until it's closed, won, or dead, crediting the source of the lead so marketing makes more informed decisions. Do you think it's something more than that or something less than that?
From a data standpoint, I think that capsulizes it. Maybe some of the changes are a little bit more subtle in the nature of the person that you're reaching out to. For example, if somebody filled in an inquiry card or phones in, they seem to be somewhat motivated. If you go to a website today, there are many who are just buzzing around your site, and you don't know why they're not filling in the form. So that sometimes there are people there that you'd like to talk to that you can't reach out to, and that's marketing's job, is to convince them to raise their hand, as it were. You mentioned the numbers, game, that if a lead's going to close, how long does it take, and what percentage? Does that seem to imply where they enter the sales process, or is it just that some are shorter, longer sales process? You'd said some close within 30 days and 60 days, 90 days. Does that mean they're entering the sales cycle at different points?
Yes, more than likely. But in B2B sales, they say the average sales cycle for the average B2B product is about 6 months, 5 to 6 months. Everybody disputes either longer or shorter, but sometimes it's 2 years, sometimes it's 3 months. And then you have people who just start right at the very beginning. And then you've got others that come to your company because somebody's mentioned it, and they're 3/4 of the way through the sales process. So that first 10 or 15% that close in 3 months could be people with a short sales cycle, or could be people who have entered the sales cycle, as you said, late in the process and have made a decision. Even at 6 months, about 50% of the people that are surveyed say they're still in the market. And at a year, 23% of the people say they're still in the market. Those numbers have been there for years. The problem is salespeople don't follow up the inquiry, which is what marketing automation, which is all about, and sales engagement software, which I didn't even mention, sales engagement software on top of sales lead management, on top of CRM. I think a lot of these other products are just people trying to differentiate themselves from CRM products. And all it is, in many respects, is creating a much bigger technical stack for the marketing department to wade their way through and try to decide, what do I really need here? And what they really need is something that a good qualified inquiry that a salesperson will follow up in such a way that the leads close at a higher rate than their competitors. That's what it gets down to it.
I think one of the things we've seen that the automation now, salespeople expect their leads to come in through their CRM. That's the number one benefit for a salesperson in the CRM, to get that lead in, or if it's a subsequent interaction. So, for example, we tag when somebody's first time we heard this name, we need to assess who they are. The second time they come in, we match that interaction to their record, so we know, has it been a couple of days between interactions, or has it been a couple of months? We're going to take a break, do a little commercial, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about something controversial with Jim Obermayer, Director of Sales Lead Management Association. So, Paul?
All right. Before we hear that, we want to remind you that it's sales acceleration. We understand that leading and growing your company, it's hard work. Many business leaders don't have the time or the energy they need to grow their sales and put a strategy in place, and one that'll work for years to come, not just the next quarter. If you're tired of not having a clear path forward, it's time to take a breath and take the next step and partner with a sales leader who's been down this road before, who can guide you to sales success. If it's structure and strategy you need, there's one place to find it: salesacceleration.com. Go check them out today and see how they can guide you to a new future. Salesacceleration.com. That's spelled Xceleration. Salesacceleration.com. We know you rely on your CRM system, and it's usually a love-hate relationship. Most CRM systems, well, let's face it, they're expensive. They're hard to understand. People don't use them properly. And you're probably paying for features that you don't even want. If that's your case, then maybe it's time to simplify. It's time to get more from your CRM. Why don't you go back to the original? Trust GoldMine. We helped pioneer the industry, after all. GoldMine CRM is, well, it's simple, it's affordable, and it's proven. If all those sound appealing to you, if you're just tired of the CRM headaches that you're getting from trying to implement something that's just too complicated, too expensive, and too much for you to figure out, then why not go back to the original? Visit GoldMine today, goldmine.com.
We're back. I mentioned a controversial topic, lead scoring. What's the state of lead scoring, and the plus and minuses of lead scoring are?
It depends on who's scoring the inquiries and how they're scoring it. And are they scoring inquiries before the person raises their hand, which is LeadSpace and other companies like that, which is another set of software that you want to get on board. But lead scoring is simply putting a numerical grade or an alpha grade to an inquiry so the salespeople know the value of it in such a way that you know that it's following along in the sales process in the company. Let's face it, you've got a sales process, usually anywhere from 6 to 10 steps that a typical sale has to go through. You've got the customer buying process, which is usually another 6 to 10 steps. You try to match those two. And along the way, as people hit those steps, there's a grade that gets attached to the inquiry. So they start knowing that some leads are A leads and some are B and some are C and some are D. 75% of the people who inquire say they're going to buy a product. Actually, 73% say they're going to buy something. Only 45% eventually do, and the ones that eventually do may not buy your product or even in that category. They may use the money for something else. But lead scoring is a big deal because salespeople want to know the value of the inquiry. If it's got a high value coming in, they'll believe it and they'll follow it up. If it's got a low value, they'll ignore it and go do something else.
I know that in our world, to simplify the forms, I took a lot of qualifying questions. Do you have budget? What's your time frame? Things like that, like you say, these people are intent on buying. You can find those out without having to jam up the form. But one of the criteria I took out was the number of seats or users that might be involved. And I find myself a little bit lost without that number. At least it was pegged, right? Oh, you're 5, you're 12. Now each one requires full attention. But there are certain ones, if somebody says 100 users, for example, that you've got probably a complex sale ahead of you. If you've got somebody that says I've got 5, that they're still going to have technical questions, important things, but they could probably have a shorter sales cycle. So you can start to mentally just get adjusted. I've seen some lead scoring, though, that gets so complex it's hard to understand the algorithm, right? Page views, what page were they on? Timing, all those other aspects of it. But how simple or complex should lead scoring be, in your opinion?
Certainly, the simpler, the better. Yes, there are additions to your website that will track where someone goes, and people will put a higher value on certain pages. So if they go immediately to the forum or if they go immediately to a white paper, it's going to have a higher score than others. But the reality is they're trying to get away from what IBM did 70 years ago or so, which is BANT, budget, authority, need, and time frame. No matter what we do, salespeople still want to know, do they have the budget? Do they have the authority to buy? Do they have the need? And how soon are they going to buy? Marketing can talk all day long about all these other qualifications. They qualify a lead. The reality is that's what the salesperson wants. Now, marketing's not going to find out budget very often. Somebody is not going to give that up unless they're going to buy it very quickly. But they will give up their authority, their need, and their time frame. And then you've got the other qualifying questions, such as yours, which is this 5 seats? If it's at 50, is it 100? If it says 100 seats and you don't know the budget, you can suppose what the budget. You probably don't care whether the person has the authority because you're going to find out who that is. You know that they've got a need because they've got 100 seats, and you don't know time frame yet. But that 100 seats is one of those other 5 or 6 questions you need in addition to budget, authority, need, and time frame. And those questions usually come out of the marketing automation system that keeps inquiring to the prospects, going back to the prospects and asking questions.
We've looked at pages visited on the website, and it's sort of like, well, yeah, before somebody fills in a form, I kind of expect them to see a demo or go to the pricing page. So while that's certainly different than somebody who hasn't, the leads that are coming in, they all should have seen that asset, or what I've found is most of them have checked out a couple of assets before they fill in the form and start to reveal themselves or that they want to interact. So lead scoring, we'll say, let's vote. It sounds like it's a good thing. Keep it simple. Make sure the salespeople understand it, so what the implications are. I always it's the same thing. If I look at a lead and I see it's a new person that we haven't dealt with before, I know I need to find out a little bit about why what they're looking for, who they are, what's on their mind, as opposed to somebody that we've already interacted with and now they're coming back in. And as I mentioned, did they hit our website twice? Did some colleagues from their company hit our website at the same time? Or has it been 6 months where you can say, oh, we last talked to you 6 months ago, what's changed or what's new or why are you back, sort of thing, right? I always found that to be helpful information to start out rapport on a lead. I
certainly agree with you. Some of the software programs that are out there that help you see some of those things. That's how HubSpot got started, and then they had a CRM system that's kind of not very good, I don't think. They got into the marketing automation field, and they were able to really qualify inquiries by looking at who came to the website, how many people came from that same company coming into the website within 4 or 5 days afterwards, and does that help push up the quality of the leads? But it all comes back to, what tools do you really need? What are those tools capable of? Do you really need to increase the marketing stack and the sales stack? They already have more than they can take, probably most of the time. Are you going to have a lead qualification capability? How fast are the inquiries entered into the database? How fast can you follow up with them? Sometimes people say, in the insurance industry and some industries like that, you got to follow up in 5 minutes. Latest 24 hours. How fast do you distribute the lead to the qualified salesperson?
I'm still amazed at how often, if today I get alerts on leads and I can respond. So if I'm out on the road, I can respond via an email. Hey, I'm busy, but let's get started this way. Or in my office, if I pick that up, I'm amazed at the number of people who say, wow, that was fast, or thanks for your timely response, which seems to imply to me that they're not getting that from somebody else, right?
I think you're right, especially in B2B. They can talk about doing it in 24 hours, but people are on the road. They're not there. Salespeople don't have great attitudes. They're stuck in customer service meetings. They're still spending less than 25% of their time. Most salespeople, way less than 25% of their time in face-to-face with customers. They only spend an hour or so a day talking to customers. They got other stuff to do, orders to put in, and all kinds of things.
Right, and it seems disruptive, but to me, following up on a lead the minute I see it. So, for example, in GoldMine, we have a web client that can send out an alert. You have a new lead. So, yes, you may not have to have that full discussion, but at least you can respond to the customer, acknowledge it, give them a time frame, maybe set a date to spend a few minutes or a time, right? And just response gets things going, as opposed to saying, I'll do all my leads at 4 o'clock till 5. You do need to find a way to be disruptive in managing the leads. I've found to be successful to keep the ball moving, so you don't have 20 things to knock out at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day. Leads need to be a priority, and some of the systems need to notify you when those are there. That's something we've tried to strive for.
I absolutely agree. Andy Paul really taught me a lot about that in several of his books, that people don't have a lot of time today. They look on the internet, they inquire, and whoever inquires first or very quickly, they'll remember that person. So now the table is set, whether you talk to them or whether you said, I'll get back to you. And then when you do get back to them, your ability to give them what they want as fast as they want it and give them pricing as fast as they want it makes a difference in B2B, especially because if somebody comes in a week or so later and says, I got an inquiry from you last week. And a lot of people say, I've already taken care of that. We've got a PO in for that because you were too damn slow.
Yep. Well, I think it just goes back to, we're coming back to this, that automation, apart from all the wonderful things it can do, the key benefit is that if you have it integrated to your website, and you have other mechanisms. If you go to a trade show, you import that list right away for follow-up, right? That to increase that sense of urgency of dealing with leads, making sure your salespeople have a tool to see the next lead, to be able to make the dial or send a responsive email and carry on the dialogue. In the few minutes that we have left, what else would you suggest the companies should do of all sizes? And I'd say let's focus a little bit more on the more modest business, the SMB. What are some key things that they should be doing today for SLMA?
They need the tracking system, which CRM provides, and the sales lead management software products provide, which is really CRM to begin with. So you need that database. You need to be able to get inquiries out to the salespeople. They need to understand that their job is to 100% follow up. I don't care what. Either you follow them up or you get fired. It's that simple. I've been a consultant for years, and I've told that to company after company after company. If you follow up the inquiry as fast as possible, you're going to find out whether they're trash or whether they're not. And in that process, you're going to sell more than those people who follow up later. It just makes sense. So you've got to have that.
Close to time, I had one more question, and that is, why do salespeople find it so hard to provide feedback on leads to marketing so that they can do a better job?
I don't know. They always think that there's something else that they've got to do. I think the days are gone where people are not accepting CRM. Just about every salesperson out there has used a CRM. So easy to use CRM systems take away those excuses of not reporting on the inquiries. And you need your sales management team to use the CRM system too. It's amazing how many tell their salespeople to use it, and they don't use anything on it but the forecasting. They need to know that you've picked an easy-to-use system that's very easy to update. It's got to be mobile. It's got to be kind of like a GoldMine product. You guys have gone from the very beginning all the way through.
Years ago, it was sales managers who bought GoldMine, and today it's still an important element. In fact, I'm doing a presentation later that sales management and basic forecasting help set the tone. So we're talking today with Jim Obermayer, Director of Sales Lead Management Association, over 11 years of dealing with lead management professionals. So you can go to slma.com and get more information and tips on that. And of course, we'd be happy to help you at GoldMine if need be. So with that, Jim, thanks for joining us today. And Paul, surf's up.
You've been listening to a special example of the Sales Lead Management Association and all the people they meet. If you want to learn more, go to slma.com. And be sure and tune in to the Funnel Radio channel for at-work listeners like you.